Why Women Want Sugar Daddies. This was an article on Unheard by Zoe Strimple, who is a historian of gender and intimacy in modern Britain and a columnist for the Sunday Telegraph and has written a book about this. And she's got some really interesting things in here that I wanted to talk about. Before I clear my throat. After I clear my throat. Anyway, so she talks about a young man she had lunch with, and his peers were on Instagram swanning it around Europe, and he was staying in America. And what it was is very attractive women who were swanning it around Europe. And so, like, they're all his age, you know, either still in college or freshly out of it, as she says. But the reason they, rather than the young man, were able to go yachting off Sardinia while sipping Dom Perignon was because rich older men had hired them to come on a luxury holiday with them. The job, which was to look nice, look hot, be nice, and be ready to accommodate more without crying assault, is called sugaring. So this is essentially being a high-class prostitute. Sugar daddies or babies might not want to admit it, this is sex work. My friend betrayed no sense of surprise at the arrangement. Such things had, he said, become totally normal in this age group. So there is a privilege here that young women are able to enjoy, young attractive women are able to enjoy. So they're at the height of their social power when they're young, and this is being taken advantage of by older men who are buying up this time while young men are forced to go without and have their dating prospects hurt by this opportunity that is only open to the women. Any thoughts on that?
Probably better for the men.
Well, not really.
Well, they can go out and actually do something with their lives. Like,
Sure,
once these sugar babies are 10 years older.
Well, yeah, exactly.
What they got.
Exactly. But anyway, these arrangements are apparently booming, with increasing number of female students in the UK and the US advertising on these websites. Unlike traditional sex work, it's popular among young women at elite institutions. Destined for fine careers, they nonetheless see it as a time-efficient way to offload student debt. As one 22-year-old sugar baby who read PPE at Oxford told me, to get a taste of luxury. In 2019, nearly 1,000 students at Cambridge alone were signed up to Seeking Arrangements, which is apparently a top sugar broking site in the Anglosphere. And according to this annual 2020 report, the number of university students in the UK seeking a sugar daddy or sugar mommy increased 36%. And in total, they have 4 million people signed up to this site, most of them being students, with 2.4 million of them being in the US alone. So this is big. There are lots of people doing this. This is a generational thing it's turning into. So basically, put simply, the cost of university is turning young women into prostitutes. Women being 60% of university admissions now as well. So that's not good, is it? There's got to be something wrong with that, inherently.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, at least the universities are doing something more useful than what they're doing at the moment.
Well, send your daughter to university. She'll be turned into a man-hating feminist who makes herself look weird.
Or a prostitute.
Or she'll be a hooker.
Which one's worse?
Well, she'll no. Well, hang on. Well, let's get into it, because these are still feminists who hate men. They're just also hookers at the same time.
So they've got the worst of both worlds.
Yes. So this this is, as you say, this is symbolic of two profound and rather shocking shifts. One, that dating with all its meaningless and built-in possibility, if things go well, of an actual relationship, complete with compromise, give and take, and real intimacy, has imploded. And two, that feminism has morphed from a movement with ideals, which envisioned, for instance, a socialist world in which women might be free from sex work, into a hard-nosed, misandric, mercenary pragmatism. So feminism has introduced women to the world as purely material, biological working machines, competing against a class of people that they are trained to hate and exploit at the cost of their own sanctity. Right? Someone has habituated these women into this worldview where they will never make an acceptable wife, girlfriend, or mother because they lack the ability to love men. This is what she's saying. Molly says, all the sugar babies I know consider themselves feminists. But it's more misandry than feminism. It's men are scum. Both parties sort of despise each other. Aria, 25, a Cornell graduate currently in law school in DC, has been on Seeking Arrangements for over 5 years. She too despises her clients, telling me over WhatsApp video from a Balkan city, men are nothing. They're just effing idiots. The hardest thing about being a sugar baby is pretending to give an S what these older men have to say. Older men are so archaic and out of it. What an incredibly hateful and mercenary attitude.
Mm.
What a world that these people inhabit.
Imagine being in a room with them.
No. For these women, the sex is the okay bit, the easy bit. Why? Because there's nothing sacred about sex to these women. They don't care. It's everywhere. Look at all the media. Look at the way that they're taught. Like, sex work is real work and all this sort of stuff. There's nothing special about sex. They've had dozens of bodies by the time they're this age anyway.
It's a great point about the sex work is real work slogan that gets used by the left all the time.
We'll get into that in a minute.
Well, it just means that sex work is just work.
It's just work. It's just labour like any other. There's nothing special about it, right? Arya can, quote, have sex with someone without feeling anything towards them. I don't even have to like them to have sex with them. Being a sex worker, that's nothing. I can always pretend sex is easy. The sentiment, almost down to the word, is echoed among other sugar babies. So these women have lost the ability to even see these men as people, right? They can't be loved because they are just mechanistic means to materialist ends. That's what the men are. These are like, literally, okay, I have to perform a function and then I get paid. That's all it is.
To be honest, the daddies probably see it that way as well.
No, they don't. We'll get into that. No, of course not.
I thought they'd be very mercenary about it, being like, my wife's dead, so whatever.
Nope. So she says this callous terrain was created by 10 years of dating apps and misapplied sex positivity and seems to have rendered physical intimacy a shiny token whose value lies in shifting the needle of power up and down, while the relationship of sex to things like romance or affection has been cauterized. Increasingly, relationships are seen as exchange mechanisms. And this is what happens when, as an intersectional feminist, you are trained to view the world purely in terms of power dynamics. Romance, love, affection, relationships themselves, they're all metaphysical things. They are not measurable, not quantifiable, they're not material, but they are real and they're an important aspect of the human life. And this has been denied to these women by intersectionality's focus on pure power relations. This is what's been done to these young women, right? She says, last week, influential sex podcaster Dan Savage reassured a well-spoken sugar baby who had called his advice show to express worries about her telling her new real boyfriend about her arrangement. Yeah, no kidding, because I bet the boyfriend's going to be like, you do what?
Hang on, how's that allowed?
What?
I thought that would be part of the rules. It'd be like, you get a sugar baby and then that's yours, kind of thing.
No, you're basically renting them for a period of time, like a prostitute.
Oh, well, that's even worse.
Yes.
Okay. I thought it'd be like, hire a girlfriend kind
This
of
is what
situation.
feminism has done to Generation Z women.
What is the difference between that and prostitution, then?
There is nothing. It's just the class of it. Like, this is a higher class of prostitute that spends longer with the punter.
Right.
Right? But anyway, so she's worried about telling her new real boyfriend about this because her boyfriend's going to be like, you what? You're a high-class hooker? Yeah, I'm worried that he's not going to like that.
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it? Anyway, she says, I think all relationships are transactional. We all pay for it. We don't always pay for it with money. We pay with time, affection, diligence, intimacy, care, but if we don't pay in the end. And the thing is, in a sense, this is true, but it's also very much a thinning out of what a relationship is into just a very, very narrow view of what it is to love someone. And in fact, this is what we were talking about in the Thick Concepts video that we did. So if you can just flip onto that, John, show people what. So on the website, we've got this Thick Concepts podcast where I go through how concepts, like moral concepts, are many layered. There are many different layers to the things, and they intersect, dare I say, with lots of other aspects of your life. And this is something that is deeply important to understand, that some words mean multiple things at one time, and these all have real consequences to how you view the world. But anyway, if we return to the article, who has hollowed out these emotional capacities? Well, the answer is, of course, feminists. She says, in the 70s and 80s, feminist sociology focused on the extra emotional labour women had to do at work, or often on top of full-time jobs at home. In a twisted reinterpretation of that sociology, nowadays, quote, women my age see all relationships as sexual labour, says Molly. Why not get paid for it? Hence the widespread acceptance of OnlyFans. If it's all just sexual labour, if you're not getting anything emotional out of this, if this isn't about creating a firmer bond with your husband or partner, and if this isn't for your own pleasure as well, and I see a lot of this going around, there's women on social media going, well, I've never had an orgasm. A man's never made me an orgasm. So yeah, why would he? He's got no investment in you. You just see him as a transaction. He just sees you as a wet hole. He doesn't care about you. But if a man did care about you, he would spend the extra time to make sure you got off as well. This is what happens when the magic of the love of a relationship is hollowed out by intersectional, power-focused feminists, and imbued and indoctrinated into a younger generation. They don't even understand there was something there that has been taken away from them. That's what's really sad about this. So, and it's not like men aren't trained to see the relationships this way as well. That's what I'm trying to say. The men are just literally like, don't care, But anyway, the problem here is they kind of view themselves and relationships in a kind of meta sense, right? They look at them as sort of like as sort of second order concerns, as in, yeah, this is what I'm doing, but I'm not really in it while I'm doing it. I'm detached from that. I'm looking at the relations between the things. Like, yeah, but step into it. Don't worry about what's going on over there. Step into it and live it, as if you're at the front of the roller coaster rather than at the back of the roller coaster. You don't know. It doesn't matter how the person in front of you is reacting. How are you reacting? How are you enjoying it? Live it for the love of God. But anyway, so she points out that Twitter is full of women who think men should pay a deposit before they go on a date with them. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? You view men as just a financial interaction. Why shouldn't these men be like, well, this is just financial interaction then? How could they think anything else? Arya put it more scathingly still. Men have a dearth of people they can share their feelings with. Thanks a lot, toxic masculinity. Nonsense. Don't take a feminist's advice on what men think. Anyway, Arya doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, but she says, so if I'm performing all this emotional labour, I have to listen to a man complain for an hour, I should get $500. So this blithering feminist nonsense has destroyed young people's relationships. If everyone is a mercenary, nothing is worthy of self-sacrifice. Nothing is noble. The mercenary is incapable of nobility.
Can you imagine having it's not. There is no concept of romantic relationship even around that. But imagine being with your girlfriend or whatever, or your boyfriend, right? And just after an hour they're complaining, money please. That's not a relationship.
No.
Nothing
Not even slightly. Sex work has been transformed, or rather wishfully squeezed, into the same category as any form of work. At the same time, all relationships have been reduced to a form of sex work. To complete the bitter triangulation, these developments are seen as compatible with empowered young womanhood. Lay, 24, another brainy American sugar baby who messaged me on Instagram from wherever, speaks the language of ambition. We want that financial security while we go after our goals. Everyone sells their body. Construction workers sell their bodies. What's different? Well, there's two things. One, honour. It's honourable to be a construction worker. It's not dishonourable. But if you're a purely materialist person and everything is just a financial transaction, what does that mean to you? Nothing. There's nothing sacred about this. There's nothing romantic, enduring. There's no specialness. And that was the thing. Like, a relationship that you have with someone else is not a relationship you can have with anyone else. You will only ever get that relationship once. It's unique, it's special, and all of this has been destroyed by feminist materialism.
I also have to ask, what goals?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? What goals do you have in your life? Well, I don't know, Nobel Prize maybe?
Just that $500, is that it?
Yeah.
Like, what's she going to spend the money on? Just some clothes and then...
Yeah. I'm just thinking of, is it the Quebecois family song? It's like your grandmother had 16 children or whatever, and you have none. And sometimes you wake thinking of a table surrounded by children.
Yeah, your great-grandmother had 16 children. Your grandmother had 8. Your mother had 2, and you've had none. You have 12 abortions, and you sit around your table crying at night. And it's like,
stuff like that. It's like, this is just awful, and that's all I can think of when I'm reading this. But she says it's no coincidence that sugaring has flourished since the Me Too movement, because basically the Me Too movement has ruined everything. The discourse of Me Too pitches heterosexual sex as a barbed power play in which young women must aggressively have or be had. Intimacy no longer comes naturally. Boundaries have had to be erected and policed, and the status of sexual consent constantly monitored. Against this backdrop, sugar relationships offer something more tranquil and easy to control. Something that photographer Alicia Nicole Downing says is much easier to navigate and manage because I'm not emotionally attached. I feel whole and like my needs are being met. I feel whole because I'm not emotionally attached. Who did this to you? Who took that away from you? If you feel whole because literally half of your life is gone and all that's been met is your material ones, you have been deprived of more than half of the human experience. Like, it used to be that people were emotionally attached to each other, and so being poor didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter if you were poor and you had nothing to do because you had each other. But you're incapable of forming emotional attachments. So you don't even see that emotional attachments are important now. Like, this is disgusting, what has been done to these young women. But all of your relationships will be remotely managed by the social police of political correctness. So I guess that's one fear put to rest. Anyway, so however lucrative, helpful, or easy The apparently empowered lifestyle is, life as a sugar baby erodes a woman's sense of self. But if the women are losing something wholesome, the men seem to be gaining, even gobbling it. I don't know if I agree with that. But anyway, after all, sugar daddying is about more than renting a hot body. It's also about getting a friendly sex therapist. Someone who will listen, even nurture. Sometimes the men just want friends. Arya's political lobbyist prefers office gossip to sex, which fades into the background when they're together, taking up less than 5 minutes of a 3-hour session. So this isn't good for the men either, right? Because they are pouring their hearts out to people who do not care at all. They should be pouring their hearts out to people who love them. Ayala, a versatile star on OnlyFans, has described some of her relationships with clients in strikingly therapeutic terms. These men desperately want to be valued by women, but the only women they're coming into contact with are women who don't value them at all. Like, if you died, they'd be like, oh dear, I'll take his wallet and leave. That's it. One man just wanted to cry on her after talking about his life. They apparently held each other and sobbed for a while. I imagine he was doing the sobbing. Then we took off our clothes and just had skin-to-skin contact, so we lay entwined, hugging. That was the entire session. He said he didn't have any other outlet like that. From then on, he would hire me about once a month, and I would come and see him, and he would just hold me and cry. Sounds like things aren't going great for those rich men. You just need to be held while you cry. Sounds like you don't really have much going on in your life you're very happy with, no matter how much money you have. Weird that I have to keep pointing out that money isn't everything and can't make you happy. It's your relationships that make you happy, and this is him desperately trying to create a facsimile of something that would resemble a relationship, while someone who hates him holds him while he cries at her because he's just so desperate for human contact. Some millionaire. Like, I'm telling you, we are so screwed.
The irony not lost on the girl as well, that this guy's got all the money,
yeah,
and yet he's miserable.
Unbelievably miserable. Like, the money didn't bring him happiness.
And she's like, okay, if I get the money,
yeah, I'll be happy.
Out like this guy.
Yeah, right, exactly. So anyway, sugar babies repeatedly describe providing the very same service. It seems easy. The babies I spoke to, whose accounts I read, all said the ease was their primary reason for pursuing these arrangements, but in the end the cost is high. Molly felt despair and had a breakdown after her sugar daddy paid off her student debt. She is still struggling with the long-term effects of seeing all relationships with men in terms of sexual quid pro quo. Like Molly, I suspect a generation of sugar babies will eventually discover that money is worth an awful lot, but it's not worth everything. Exactly. What happens to these women when they're old and lonely, when they're unable to form relationships with men, unable to love anyone else, or probably even themselves, because what is there about herself to love? What do? I'm a prostitute who prostitutes herself to people I hate. Why would I love myself if that was my own opinion of myself, right? So they're lost and alone with a wasted youth, and they haven't invested in anyone else or themselves or their futures. We are so screwed. Imagine what the consequences of this are going to be in like 20 or 30 years' time.
2 million, you said?
4 million.
Sorry, 4 million.
In America and Britain alone.
That's a lot
of
people.
Of upwardly mobile, intelligent women who have been ruined by feminism. And that's just the ones who have chosen to do that as well, and have the ability to do that, right? So that's the hot ones, basically. Then below that, you're going to have a strata of women who are still feminists, who are still ruined by feminism. But
the
just
ones
not,
you see at protests.
Exactly, but are just not hot enough to become the sugar babies. And so the entire generation of Generation Z women seem to have been corrupted by intersectionality. Absolutely disgusting.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can catch the full podcast at 1 p.m. every weekday UK time at lotuseaters.com. You can also sign up at lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, that's how we keep this whole operation running. And recently we've put up loads of great stuff, such as this interview with legendary comedian Steve Hughes, one of my personal favourite comedians, so it was a real honour to be able to meet him. But one thing that I didn't expect, that he would be such a deep thinker, and this podcast is genuinely like a meeting of minds in a way. He was right on my wavelength on a bunch of things and helped me actually connect a bunch of dots, but I'm not going to carry on and spoil it. We also, of course, have lots of interesting articles that have been written, such as this one by Josh about the dumbest country on earth. And for premium, for silver tier subscribers, we also include a link, so it's we have an audio reading of it from a chap called Jonathan, who has a very smooth voice that you will enjoy. And this is great because often I don't have time to read all of the articles we put up, because we've put up a lot of regular content, and so this saves me the hassle of having to read it myself. So I really actually am very appreciative of this feature on a personal level. But we also do the contemplations and epochs, which are just interesting podcasts about interesting things. These are regular weekly podcasts. So this one is one of our writers, Josh, he's got a master's degree in psychology, talking about theories of intelligence and how they matter. And of course, we've got the epochs, where myself and Bo, or in this case it was Josh and Bo, talking about the life of Sir Francis Drake. So that's 2 solid hours talking about England's most notorious adventurer. But we've also got lots and lots of other ones. This is number 21, so there's a good back catalogue there. And finally, we have our book clubs, and this is the part that I'm most proud of. Recently, we've done Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, and
Reflections on a Ravaged Century by Robert Conquest.
Yeah, Robert Conquest is fantastic. Just if you want Western chauvinist historian, he's your man.
Anti-socialism.
Yes, in all forms, it's fantastic. And like I said, that's what keeps the podcast running. So if you want to become a member, thank you very much, and we think there's some great stuff you'll enjoy.